You're going to survive a government shutdown. It's not even really a government shutdown. What we may not survive, though, is the Democrat Party. So before I dig into this in ways that others won't, I want to say a few things. This budget stuff brings to the fore a much bigger problem: the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party does not believe in capitalism. The Democrat Party does not believe in limited government. The Democrat Party does not believe in federalism. The Democrat Party does not believe in individual liberty. The Democrat Party does not believe in the Declaration of Independence and unalienable rights. The Democrat Party does not believe in the Constitution and separation of powers. The Democrat Party does not believe in Judeo-Christian values and principles as the basis of our founding. The Democrat Party is a power-hungry enterprise. It seeks the centralization of power. It seeks one-party rule. It seeks a permanent, overarching federal government. It believes rights are not God-given, but government-given and controlled. The Democrat Party believes in Marxism-Islamism, which they falsely label democratic socialism. It is the home to radical, extremist, anti-American and un-American movements of every sort. The Democrat Party promotes crime and criminals, illegal immigration, including sex slavery of women and children of migrants, the profiteering of drug cartels, the importation of deadly drugs and illegal weapons with open borders. It promotes anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry, and the violence related to them, claiming it's free speech. The Democrat Party incites violence with agitprop, poisonous propaganda, and vicious fear-mongering. It supports radical teachers' unions over students, woke ideology over education, perversion over morality, criminals over victims and local law enforcement, illegal aliens over ICE and the Border Patrol. The list goes on and on. It is a party that, as the title of one of my recent books puts it, hates America. It is in a constant state of revolution and sabotage. If you look at my last three books, American Marxism, The Democrat Party Hates America, and On Power, and I'm not here to hawk books. I'm here to promote ideas and facts and smarts and intelligence. That's what I do. If you read those three books, or if you're an observer, a serious observer, you know what I'm telling you is true. It should come as no surprise that over a simple administrative matter like a continuing resolution for a few-week extension of a budget so that they can finish their appropriations process, that the Democrat Party seizes on it, seeks to plunge the nation into a crisis. They're going to fail for reasons I'll explain. This is the wrong hill for them to die on. But they're not going to stop. There's going to be many hills. It is a party that seeks nothing short of the destruction and overthrow of our civil society. Now, what is a government shutdown? What is a government shutdown? Here's a little secret. The federal government never shuts down. We couldn't shut the whole thing down if we actually wanted to. The vast majority of it remains open today. You just don't see it. It continues to receive over $400 billion of monthly revenues from you, the taxpayer. Oh, it's shut down. No, they're still pumping in your money left and right. That doesn't stop. You continue paying your taxes, including for Social Security and Medicare. Of course, parts of the federal government close, but really not much. The media focus all their attention on those parts to incite you to fall in line with the Democrat Party agenda. Here's another little secret. While the federal government takes in about $5 trillion, it spends nearly $7 trillion. That's the problem. So the debt keeps growing. The Democrats want to add, right now, another $1.5 trillion on top of all of it. That's why they won't agree to a continuing resolution that does what? Continues spending at current levels. They want to spend trillions more while blaming the administration and the Republicans for the debt. And yes, the Democrats want funding for free health care for illegal aliens. They lie about it. Their media lie about it. But that's part of what they want. And not just now. They want it for 10 years. And they want to keep spending money on able-bodied people, Americans, who sit on their backsides on a sofa watching TV all day and collect free health care. The Republicans said no in the big, beautiful bill. You got to work at least 20 hours a week. That's too much for the Democrat Party. So they want to make sure that people they brought into the country illegally, the people they refused to deport, their new constituency, they hope the Supreme Court upholds birthright citizenship. So you have Democrats coming and going left and right after country from country. They want to make sure they're taken care of with free health care that you pay for. The electrician, the plumber, the cop, the firefighter, that average Americans pay for. They'll get better health care than you. That's true. The Democrats are lying about it, but that's what they do. They lie all the time. And so there's so much waste and fraud in this government. The battle over waste and fraud is never over. Now, there's also the politics. The Democrats want to endlessly grow and centralize the government in the name of the people, of course. They're power hungry, and they want more and more people on the public dole. They're not playing to the radical base. The party is the radical base. This is what the party believes. They are cultural Marxists and economic socialists, American Marxists, as I explained in another book. The private sector in their mind exists to serve the government, as it is increasingly devoured by the government. There's no such thing as limited constitutional government in their minds. A little temporary so-called shutdown is a small bump in the road to one-party tyrannical rule, which is what they crave. In fact, it's a tactic. It's a tactic. Now I've set the stage for what's really going on. There have been 21 government, quote-unquote, shutdowns in 50 years, since 1976. Take a look at this graphic. 21. And we're still here. What happened? 21. Oh, my God, they're shutting down the government. What are we going to do? And the media is out there, and they're running to the national parks, and they'll find somebody who's lost a job in something like that. That's what they do. Now, I would ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. The recent pandemic, when states, particularly blue states, not only, but particularly blue states, shut down restaurants and bars, shut down schools and universities, shut down entertainment venues, shut down recreational facilities, shut down personal care services, shut down retail stores, public and community spaces, even beaches, the genius in California, Newsom, shut down major sporting events, musical festivals and conferences, shut down travel and tourism. Were the media out there with microphones and cameras saying, how do you feel about this? No, it was righteous. You lose your business. That's for the cause. You lose your job. That's for the cause. But now we have a quote-unquote government shutdown. And so all hell's going to break loose. Oh, my God, I can't go into the national park? What are we going to do? The White House points out that the big, beautiful bill ended Medicaid funding for most non-citizens, ended the enhanced federal medical assistance percentage for emergency care for illegal aliens, ended Medicare funding for most non-citizens, and ended Obamacare funding for most non-citizens. This is where the Democrat Party draws the line. They lie to your face as they've lied about everything. Even that massive inflation reduction bill, remember that? $2 trillion had nothing to do with inflation except to increase it? Because that's what they do. Their policies suck so badly. They're so horrendous. They can't really run on them, so they lie about them. The Democrats are trying to use a continuing resolution bill, which should be a no-brainer, a short-term spending bill used to bridge over a short period while the congressional committees finish their appropriation process. They want to add hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal immigrants and over $1.5 trillion of new spending. And they don't want you to notice. During Biden's presidency, we saw an approximate $9 trillion net increase in the debt. $9 trillion in just 4 years. By far the worst ever in human history. And the vast majority of that after the pandemic. Let's talk numbers. You know, they say stay away from numbers. People will close their eyes. No, these are big numbers. This is about you. Our government, federal government, takes in revenue, it did last year, 2024 fiscal year, $4.9 trillion. That's a lot of nickels. That is a lot of money, almost $5 trillion. But they say they need more. Most of that, 50% of that, is income taxes. Individual income taxes, small businesses, corporate income taxes. And then you have payroll taxes for things like Social Security, Medicare, other certain federal so-called entitlement programs. That's 34% of it. So that's 84%. 84%. In 2023, the revenue was $4.6 trillion. So in 2024, it's $4.9 trillion. In 2023, it's $4.6 trillion. With the tariffs in place this year, they'll even have more revenue than they would normally have. This isn't a revenue problem. They got money pouring out of every one of their orifices. The problem is they spend like drunken Marxists. That's the problem. The federal government receives, right now as I speak, about $400 billion every month. You keep paying. That's not shutting down. The money keeps going in. The revenue keeps going. It's going in. It's going in. It's going in. $400 billion, give or take, every single month. We spend $2.6 billion on interest on this debt that's over $37 trillion every day. Every day. It is the fastest growing part of the federal budget, the interest on the debt. And the Democrats have a brilliant idea. Let's add another $1.5 trillion, especially to cover our new friends and constituents and voters, illegal immigrants, and hopefully their children. It'll nearly double in 10 years. Double, which means it will swallow the budget. Now, 2025 interest is projected to total $1.2 trillion this fiscal year. You know the defense budget is $893 billion? So it's nearly $400 billion larger than the defense budget. Can we keep that up? Democrats say yes. What's the problem? Paper. Money's just paper. Cares about inflation. Cares about debt. Who cares about spending? I mean, we got great ideas. Just ask Bernie Sanders, the red. Oh, he's got 1,000 of them. Now, I want you to follow me on this from the Peterson Foundation. This is big. Mandatory spending. Mandatory? I thought we lived in a democracy. 75 to 80% of the federal budget is mandatory spending. What's that mean? Programs governed by provisions of permanent law are referred to as mandatory. Why? Because mandatory programs do not require annual approval. Such spending is essentially on autopilot unless policymakers change the underlying laws governing the program. So 75 to 80%, that's like Social Security and the rest of it, is on autopilot. We're not even talking about that. We're not even talking about 75 to 80% of the federal budget. Autopilot, that's spent, that has nothing to do with a continuing resolution, has nothing to do with annual budgeting. Zero. It's off budget. Many of the programs that provide benefits to individuals are classified as mandatory spending, like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Those programs are also often referred to as entitlements because individuals who meet the program's eligibility requirements are entitled to benefits. Major health programs, now also mandatory spending. 4 components: Medicare for seniors and disabled people, Medicaid generally for lower income beneficiaries and apparently illegal aliens if you're a Democrat, premium tax credits and related spending for low and moderate income people, and the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP. None of them are affected by the government shutdown. Income security programs, making payments to individuals based on their income through programs including earned income, child, other tax credits, unaffected. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program called SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, unaffected. And there's much more than that. Supplemental security income, payments to disabled children and adults with limited incomes, unaffected. Unemployment compensation, unaffected. Support and foster care, child nutrition, unaffected. Veterans programs that provide pensions, income support, other benefits for those who previously served in the military, unaffected. Federal retirement programs for federal civilian and military retirees, unaffected. Other programs consist of a range of activities, including agricultural support, student loan subsidies, deposit insurance, and so forth. So take a look at this chart. See that big chart right there? Those are mandatory outlays that I just went through, unaffected by the government shutdown, because most of the government never shuts down, even if you want it to shut down. The laws governing mandatory programs do not provide specific funding levels. Instead, they specify who's eligible for benefits, as well as the type of level of benefits to be distributed. All that within that pie chart. Now, what's discretionary spending? Because that's what we're talking about here. Discretionary spending, 25, 20, 27% of the budget, depending on the year. Discretionary spending is determined on the annual basis by Congress and the president through this appropriations process. As opposed to the automatic nature of mandatory spending, discretionary spending must be approved each fiscal year. That's what the fight is over. Defense spending represents nearly half of total discretionary spending. So after defense spending, we're left with even a smaller piece of the pie. That's why I said the vast majority of you are going to be utterly unaffected by all this. Then there was a piece in The Hill by Cheryl Kelly. I don't know her political perspective. It doesn't much matter. She just makes some very good points. What people call shutdown affect only the most visible, least essential services. The actual machinery of government continues operating normally during shutdowns, the vast majority of it. Somewhere at 3 a.m. this morning, USDA food safety inspectors walked into meat processing plants across America. They'll examine 37 billion pounds of meat this year, not because politicians told them to do it this week, but because that's what they do. For instance, meteorologists at the National Weather Service are today analyzing atmospheric data that will determine whether your flights get delayed tomorrow. They're still there. At the USDA's Global Intelligence Centers, analysts are tracking crop conditions in 95 countries. They could affect American food prices months from now. Nuclear engineers are monitoring reactor cooling systems that can't take a day off. What else? What actually stops during shutdowns are the visible, public-facing service that makes citizens feel the political pain. National parks, the Smithsonian, processing some permits and applications. Here's what continues. Nuclear reactor monitoring, air traffic control, food safety inspection, disease surveillance, border security, law enforcement, military operations, Social Security, as I mentioned, Medicare, Medicaid, weather forecasting, thousands of other services. But the Democrats want to spend $1.5 trillion more dollars. The Republicans are saying, can't we all just get along? Can't we just pass a continuing resolution to get us to the appropriations process for the 25-30% of the budget that we need to actually address in this process? The Democrats are blackmailing the Republicans. They're blackmailing the president. They're blackmailing the country with the help of the media that's out there saying, oh, my God, the sky's falling. 21 so-called shutdowns in 50 years, and the sky is still there. And I want to salute the administration because they're saying, okay, well, guess what we're going to do? We're going to use this as an opportunity to find more waste and bloat, more abuse and fraud, and we're going to slash it. We're going to slash it because you Democrats, we know what you're doing. You're playing to your party. You're playing to the media. You think this is going to help you in the midterm elections. Schumer is running scared like a chicken without his head because the Marxist Islamists have him targeted, and so he's more Marxist Islamist than he's ever been. This is a fight within and with the Democrat Party over power. That's what it is.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.